Well, today we are going to be doing lesson 53, rectangular grid patterns. So if you don't have your book, go and get it now. Open it up to page 288. On 288, we're going to be learning about rectangular grid patterns. So if you don't have your book, pause the video right now, go get it, and then come back. All right, here we go. So what we're going to be learning about is how to measure this rectangle without even using a ruler. And it can be done. If you see here, first, before we start, there are some things that we need to learn. We're going to skip this top part right here, and we're going to do that a little bit later. But if you look at example 1, we want to try to find the length and the width of the rectangle. So we've talked about that before. The length is the long, the width is the wide. So find the side. The length is the long, the width is the wide. So one of the things that you'll notice is that in this rectangle, we've got all these little boxes. So we want to figure out how many there are inside, how many of these, and these are actually, instead of calling them little squares inside the big rectangle, we're going to call those units. Okay, so first thing that we want to do is identify that this part going down, all of these are called columns. All right, and going across, those are the rows. So when we're talking about columns, we're going down, and when we're talking about rows, we're going across. Think about columns like the big columns in the White House. If you've ever seen the White House, has those big columns that are holding up the from the roof to the ground floor. Okay? The next thing that we want to take a look at when talking about the length and the width is we can figure out how many units for this whole rectangle just by counting how many long, counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice I went by row. Okay, there are 4, if we're talking about columns, 4 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many rows? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so when we're talking about length, it's long, width is wide. When we're talking about columns, we're talking about going down. And when we're talking about rows, we're talking about going across. All right, so the way that you would count this is that you would just start at one corner and count the number of columns. 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. And then how many, and there are 3 units wide. So now we're going to count the rows. 1, 2, 3. In example 2, it says how many small squares are inside this rectangle. Remember, what did we say? Instead of calling them small squares, we're going to call them units. So how many units are in here? We want to start by counting how many across. 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many across this way? 1, 2, 3. So we can find the number of squares in a few different ways. Now, one way is to count them by 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Or we can count, there's 3 in each column. 3, 6, 9, 12. Sounds like multiplication there, doesn't it? Another way that we can count is we can also count our 3 rows of 4. We could count 1, 2, 3. And we've got 4 squares in each. So it would be 4, 8, and 12. Now, whatever way you choose to count, the total is always going to be 12 units or small squares. So they have a little activity for us to try. And I know you guys don't have grid paper at home, so I'm going to go ahead and do this for you. I've got some grid paper here. We've got some really wide squares, and then we've got some with smaller squares. So let's take a look at this one. And it says on grid paper, draw rectangles with the following lengths and widths. So length means I'm going to be going across. I want 5 units by 4 units. So 5 units, I need to count each one of these squares or units. And as I make my line, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I want to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just go down 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 across here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to figure out how many units there are, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4. If I'm using multiplication, that would be 5 times 4, okay? Or I can count by 5s 4 times. 5, 10, 15, 20. This has 20 units, okay? Now, is it possible, this next one says 6 unit by 3 units. I went across 6, but could I also go down 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and across by 3? 1, 2, 3. That would be 3 going across and then 6 coming down. Does it make a rectangle? You bet it does. So it works either way. If I want to make 6 going across, those would be for my columns, or going down, those would be for my rows. Okay? Either way, this one is the length, and now this one is the width. So on this one, we have 1, 2, 3. And how many times do we have that 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 times 6, 18. Or I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would be 6 times. 6 times I'm counting 3, or 3 times I'm counting 6. Either way, I still have 18 units. Okay? In the next one, it says 3 units by 3 units. So let me slide this over a little bit. So I count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 3 going across and 3 going down. All right, so we've got 3 columns, 1, 2, 3, and 3 times we're adding, or 3 times we're going to be counting 3, 6, 9. So our product is going to be 9, but how many times did we do that? There's 3 going across, 3 rows, and 3 columns. 3 times 3 equals 9. So we have a total of 9 units. Now this is a special kind of a rectangle. What is the name of this rectangle? You got it. It's a square. Square because it does have the 4 right angles, but all of the sides are the same size. All right? In our last one, I'm going to switch papers so that you guys can see. This one's got a bigger grid. I want to do 7 units by 4 units. So I'm going to go across 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So which side is the length? Which one is the long? Length is long and width is wide. All right, this one is our length. And how many units across is our length? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And our width, 1, 2, 3, 4. So to figure out our units, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 in a row, 7 times. 4 in a row, 4 in our column, and 7 times going across. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 times 7, 7 columns, and 7 times 4, if we want to go the other way, 7 times, and there's 4 in each row, 7 times 4. And what do we get for an answer? You know, let's count by 7s or count by 4s. We should be learning all of our multiplication facts. What did you get for an answer? If you said 28, then you are correct. There are 28 squares. Now, if you don't know your 4s and your 7s, then you can count them at one at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 28 units. Okay, so let's take a look. We'll do a couple more on our grids. We want to go down to the lesson practice now and take a look at lesson letter A. It says find the number of small squares inside each of these rectangles. Now you may use grid paper to draw the rectangles for problems C and D, or you may find the answers mentally. So we'll try them both ways to see what we get. So let's take a look at letter A. On letter A, we want to figure out how many columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3. 5 times 3, you got it, 15 units. Over here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It makes what? Anytime you've got both the width and the length are the same, you've made a perfect square. Okay, and what is 4 times 4? You've got to be how old to drive a 4x4? 16. All right, now here we've got 5 units by 2 units. We can use our grid paper going 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 by 2, 1, 2, and draw the grid. Or if you know your multiplication, look how easy that is. 5 times 2 equals 10 units. Here we've got a unit 5 by 5. So what kind of a shape is that going to be if I'm 5 across? Let's go over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should make a perfect. Remember, when both numbers are the same, both your length and your width are the same numbers, then you've made a perfect square. And what is 5 times 5? Should be 25 units. Okay. How many columns of squares are in this rectangle? How many columns? So are columns going across or are columns going down? They're going down. So how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 columns. How many rows are in this rectangle? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so boys and girls, that completes our lesson. And then now I want you to go to your Google Classroom and find the worksheet that you're supposed to work on. It's written practice, but it looks a little bit different from here. We made it more of a multiple choice. All right, have fun.